Agent 47. The name alone should have dozens of evil video game ne'er-do-wellers shaking in their boots and looking over their shoulder before doing anything even remotely mischievous. Because for over 20 years, this international man of mystery has been contracted again and again to infiltrate the bad guys' hideouts and take them down in the stealthiest and often most creative ways possible. And while Hitman 3 doesn't stray too far from the tried and true assassination formula, this time around, developers IO Interactive made the entire campaign playable in first-person VR, transforming the game, for me at least, from barely a passing interest into a full-blown obsession. Hitman 3 is divided into 6 missions, each preceded by a 2D cutscene with a brief overview of the situation. But then you're dropped into the level, and the first time you play any of them, it's more than a little overwhelming. See, the stages in Hitman are so sprawling that you could easily fit the entirety of Shadow Legend or Red Matter into each one, possibly a few times over. That in itself wouldn't be so impressive. I mean, size isn't everything, right? But the level of detail here is staggering. Stages are filled to the brim with crowds of NPCs, random dialogue to overhear, items to find, traps to set, and to top it off, they're the best looking environments that PSVR has ever seen. The resolution is clear as day, and the art design, which favors rich, saturated colors rather than photorealism, is frequently impeccable. I often found myself walking around the levels aimlessly, just to see what breathtaking view would be around the next corner. And actually, it's when you're taking your time and checking out every corner of the map that Hitman really starts to shine. Because, yes, if you're playing on the casual default difficulty, you could easily make your way to the target by choking out a few innocent bystanders, taking their clothes, then running into the final part of the level with guns blazing. And if you're having a bad day, or you just need some stress relief, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're ready to see everything that this game has to offer, you'll discover that Hitman is all about being stealthy. Listening to conversations, discovering entire story arcs that you could have missed even though they're happening right in front of you, taking down your targets in ridiculous ways, then getting out of dodge without anyone ever having known you were there. But as fans of the series already know, that's kind of par for the course. What Hitman 3 does to change things up is to add PlayStation VR support for the entire campaign, which will easily take around 12 to 15 hours your first time through, then another 30 or 40 to see everything you missed. It also allows you to take the entire campaign from Hitman 1 and 2 if you already own them, import them into the Hitman 3 engine, then play those games in VR as well. The whole thing is kind of unbelievable, essentially giving PlayStation VR gamers 3 new AAA games to play. And as it turns out, Hitman 1 and 2 are both fantastic games, and I think I actually enjoyed those levels even more than Hitman 3 itself. They feature some really interesting levels, and they're just as impressive as anything Hitman 3 has to offer. That said, not everything made the transition to VR intact. 2 game modes, Contracts and Sniper Assassin, along with a few pieces of legacy DLC like Patient Zero, can only be played in non-VR. Instinct Vision, which normally would show off the outlines of every NPC in your immediate vicinity, has been simplified to mostly just showing where your targets are. There's also a lot of fade to black moments whenever you jump off ledges, enter hiding spots, or whenever you lose control of Agent 47 for a brief moment while a stock animation plays out. In VR, that happens in a flash, all while the screen is blacked out. And as impressive as the graphics are, you'll certainly be witnessing a lot of pop-in, mostly with NPCs in areas with huge crowds, but honestly, unless you're looking for it, you'll often be far too immersed in what's happening around you to notice. So you'd think with all this climbing, gunfire, and strangulation, there'd be some pretty amazing move support, right? Well, actually no there's not. In fact, you can only play Hitman 3 with the DualShock 4. Having analog sticks for full locomotion is great, but unlike say Resident Evil 7, IO Interactive still attempted to include motion controls, but by using the DualShock's light bar. And this is somewhat of a double-edged sword. I feel like I'd be missing something without the motion controls, but at the same time it feels sloppy to throw a punch by shoving my controller out in front of me. The same holds true for aiming guns. While standing in one place and shooting guys in front of you feels fine, the tracking gets thrown off the minute you try to aim too far left or right, reminding you to always use the analog stick to turn to keep your targets directly in front of you. Using head tracking to aim would have worked infinitely better here and been far more precise. And finally, if you're not completely centered within the view of your PlayStation camera, and sometimes even if you are, a grid will appear to remind you to recenter yourself. This usually fades out in a matter of seconds, but sometimes you simply can't get rid of it no matter how hard you try. And currently, there's no option to turn this off. Hitman 3 can feel really overwhelming at first. The game is constantly throwing options at you to take down each map in a variety of ways, long before you even know what any of those options mean or what you're supposed to be doing. But the more time you spend in each location and the more familiar it becomes, the more comfortable you'll get with experimenting. If you're diving into the series for the first time, consider picking up the whole trilogy to get the full story. Because Hitman 3 is great, but it's the finale of an epic saga that will be far more impactful if you understand the relationships in play. Overall though, Hitman 3 is a standout title even on its own, and a stunning technical achievement that shows PlayStation VR still has a lot of life left in it.
I am ready to show Madame Carlyle the funeral arrangements.
You got rid of the birds?
Yes.
Perfect. I'll let her know. Mr. Parsons is ready to see Madame Carlyle.
Finally.